Hello and welcome dear students to our series of grammar and use. In this video we are going to form questions. Requesting you to get the notepad and a pen ready to take down the pointers and the examples as we construct the sentences in the video. Let us dive into it. Now let us first understand the structure of questions. Questions require question tags. Now in this video we are going to tackle auxiliaries. Auxiliaries are am, is, are, was, were, has, have, had, do, did, does. We are going to form questions using auxiliaries. So from simple statements we are going to change them or convert them to questions. So make a note of it. If the statements use be form, I have just mentioned there are 11 such words, or an auxiliary verb, its question form is made by inverting the verb and the subject. That means you just change the auxiliary and the place of the auxiliary and the place of the verb or subject, interchange them, and your question is ready. Just add a question mark after it. Any other question is formed by adding do or does, which we'll see later. Now, our first pointer is questions with the be form. That means are is used. To make questions using the verb be, the verb goes before the subject. The verb goes before the subject. Now, in the statement, you have the subject first, then the auxiliary, and then the remaining part of the sentence. You are Canadian. In a statement, the subject comes before the verb. Subject is in the beginning, then is auxiliary, then is the remaining part of the sentence. But in a question, you have the auxiliary first, and then you have the subject, and then you have the remaining part of the sentence with a question mark. Are you Canadian? How is this formed? By interchanging the first two words. In the question, the verb comes before the subject. That was the rule that was mentioned over there. And the subject comes after the verb. This is the verb are and you is the subject. So, are you Canadian? The first letter capital and ending with a question mark, and your question is ready. Let us look at certain examples based on the same structure. If the original sentence was sorry, I am early, it can be changed to sorry, am I early? Are you are tired? The statement changes to are you tired? They are engineers changes to are they engineers? Farida is here yet? Is Farida here yet? She is still a student changes to is she still a student? You aren't bored. Aren't you bored? At this moment, kindly pause the video and construct sentences, statements, and questions both. Let us proceed and analyze the structure so that you can self-evaluate the sentences that you have constructed. Am, are, and is, these three are listed over here. And the subjects, first person pronoun, then you, we, and they, that is second person, first person plural, and then the third person plural, third person singular for masculine, third person pronoun for feminine, and it for neuter gender. Let us see how we construct the questions. Am I Canadian? Are you Canadian? Are we Canadian? Are they Canadian? Is he Canadian? Is she Canadian? Is it Canadian? And at the end there's a question mark. If you have done the same, kindly self-evaluate and proceed with this. The next pointer that we have is questions with the be in the past. Past is was. He was in India. How do we change it? Was is brought first, subject is brought second, and the question is ready. Was he in India? Question mark. The subject and was and were swap places. Suppose if the sentence was they were in India, were will become the first word and they will become the second word. Were they in India? Let us look at the rule. To ask questions about the past using the verb be, the subject and the verb swap places. Swap means interchange places. Let us proceed and see certain examples based on the same structure. Was it nice and sunny yesterday? Was he good at playing tennis? Were they were there any snacks at the party? Were you at the party last night? At this moment, you are requested to construct a few sentences based on the structure that is given on screen. Let us proceed to the next pointer. The next pointer is questions with auxiliary verbs. Auxiliaries are has, have, etc. In this case, we are using has, third person, so we'll take has. For auxiliary, now the same rule is applied. She has changes to has she. She has finished work. Has she finished work? Auxiliary comes first and the main verb does not move. It remains there itself. Let us study the rule. For questions including an auxiliary verb such as have, will, could, the subject and the auxiliary verb swap places. That is the subject. This is the auxiliary verb. Swap places, interchange places. The main verb stays where it is. The main verb does not change places with any of the words. Let us proceed and see certain examples based on the same structure. Could you tell me where is the stadium, please? Have they decided when they are going to get married? Should we have called ahead before coming? If a question has more than one auxiliary verb, only the first one moves. That means, will you have finished that report by tomorrow? Now, requesting you to construct sentences based on the structure that is on screen. Pointing to the example that is given over here, if the statement was, we should have called, we should have. Now, should and have, there are two auxiliaries. Only the first auxiliary moves, that is should. Now, let us proceed. The next pointer that we have is do and does, use of do and does. Now, it is slightly different. Kindly pay attention. Over here, you can see the sentence, she works in an office. That's a statement. Now, she works remain as such in an office is the remaining part of the sentence. Over here, the subject and the verb do not change. We bring in an extra word that is does. Does goes with only the third person pronoun that is he and she. Do or does goes at the start. The main verb changes to its base form. Now there's only one change, that is when with the question the verb is in the base form, the s is taken away. So there are 2 pointers over here. One is that the verb changes to its base form and do or does is brought depending on the subject that you have. Now let us read the rule and understand. Questions in the present simple without the verb be or an auxiliary verb starts with do or does. So we are starting the question with do or does because there was no auxiliary and the main verb is in the base form. Now here it was not in the base form, here it was with an s, so the question is brought to the verb is brought to the base form. The subject and the main verb do not swap around. The subject and the main verb, they remain where they are. Does she work in an office? Now let us see certain structures based on the rule that we have just studied. Do they live in Paris? Do you speak English? Do I know you? Don't you have any vegetarian food on the menu? Does he get up very early every morning? Does your father work on a farm? Does she still play the piano? Doesn't this office have air conditioning? This is in the negative connotation. Now, you are requested to first construct the sentence, they live in Paris, and then change it to a question form, do they live in Paris? He gets up very early in the morning is the statement. Does he get up very early in the morning? So at this moment, pause the video and construct sentences. Now let us analyze whether our constructed sentences are right or not. Let us see. Do or does is in the beginning. The subject is next. The base form of the verb is after that. And then the remaining part of the sentence. Do I work in an office? Do you work in an office? Do we work in an office? Do they work in an office? Now, goes with the third person. Does he work in an office? Does she work in an office? Does it work in an office? I hope this will help you self-evaluate your sentences. Next is the next pointer question with did. Now let us first look at the sentence. They bought a new car. And what happens is that in the question, in the statement, they had a past tense, simple past tense, but in the question, it is always in the base form. And then you bring in the word did in the beginning. So did is the past simple form of do. Did they buy? Buy, we bring it to the base form of the verb. Did they buy a new car? Now let us look at the rule. What is stated in the rule? Questions in the past simple without the verb be. There was no auxiliary, so no be form was there, or an auxiliary verb start with the verb did. Start with the word did. And have the main verb in its base form. The main verb is brought to the base form. The subject and the main verb do not swap places. The subject and the main verb remain wherever they are. So let us read the question. Did they buy a new car? Question mark. Let us see certain constructions based on the given rule. Did they have a good time? Did you read a book on the beach? Did I tell you the good news? Did you swim in the sea? Did she meet her friends in town? Did he go to the gym? Did Jack get get fired? Didn't we meet at the conference last year in Paris? Now, you are requested to first construct the sentence and then construct the question. You may pause the video as you are working on this exercise. There are certain common errors made by people when constructing sentences. We have just pointed out that the verb in the question will not take an S when you're constructing questions with did or does. Let us see. When questions are formed with an auxiliary verb do form, that is does and did, the main verb must be in the base form. That means without an S. Does she work in a school? If you say does she works with an S, it is wrong. Did they buy a new car? Buy is in the base form of the verb, so it is correct. If you say did they bought a new car, bought is wrong or incorrect English. So remember that with the do forms are the does and did, they will take the main verb in the base form without an S. With this, we have come to the end of the video. If you like the video, click on like, share and subscribe. Thank you very much for your kind attention.